There's a question.
So that, especially what you just said about the stone, makes me ask this question because I'm always interested in audience. And I find that a lot of artists say that their audience is themselves. But you said a couple of times, you talked about all of us here and what our reactions might be. So what, I mean, is your artwork to satisfy you, or do you have other
purposes?
Yes, when I'm making them, it is to satisfy me. There's a little bit of venting that occurs in it, a little bit of expunging of bad feelings, and maybe joy also sometimes. But it was done for me. But during this exhibition, the way I selected it, including the titles and everything, I do want to communicate. There's something I'm missing by just doing the art by myself. I wanted to start a conversation, shall we say.
So,
Share what I was feeling when I was making it.
so how do you know that you've communicated?
I don't. I just try, like I said. That's the movie we saw last night. You just gotta try. Yeah. Even if they say they understand, you never know, right? There's always that little bit of doubt. Did we actually understand the same thing? But maybe it doesn't matter as much at the end of the day that it's exactly the same. It's just a feeling of wanting to share some of the thoughts. But during the making of the art, yes, it's true. I did do most of it just for myself, right? Without the audience in mind. No, you're right. Another.
I love that answer.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, it seems like when you're honest, and you're striving for honesty, you get your own feelings and your own view of the world.
Yeah.
And you emphasize tension
Right.
a lot. That if that's done well, it's going to strike something in somebody else too. It may not be the exact same thing,
Right.
but it will probably be something inside and
Right.
hidden and
Right.
deep,
Right.
which would be a real success.
Yeah, everybody have their own lenses
Mhm.
and their own experiences that they put into whatever the art piece may do for them. I've done my part already. I'm the one who stepped in and said, this is what I feel. Like even that piece that somebody was looking at, that rod that suddenly bent, you know. And my question there is very an honest question. What is happening today? And if you look at it, it's again, mechanical engineers here can decide whether there's a lot of mistake there. The reason I think what is happening there for me is the center is lost. The center is very weak. The two sides cannot withhold it. It has to be a spectrum, you know. But we're too binary, and what happens is that we'll break in the middle. You know, I don't know how long we can sustain it. I mean, we're gonna break. Right now, it's still standing. I mean, but you know, my worry is when is it gonna break up? You know. So, yeah.
Yeah, so just to change the mood a little bit.
Yeah.
Although your FAQs were more targeted to
That's right.
maybe the mood of your life.
That's
But
right.
when I came in and I'm looking around, I focused on the joyous images.
That's right.
So the equilibrium and Trisha and
Oh,
the
yeah.
few, but it's just this joy in the way they're
That's
doing.
right.
And I also noticed they were all women, so I was particularly
Oh, that's right.
happy about.
Yeah, I think that's a good observation. I think women are quite strong because, as the scarred and everything else showed, they're as far as between the two genders, the women are mostly unfairly treated, and yet they're the happier gender between men and women. You know, they're able to, and maybe I'm envious in that sense. Not envious to be treated badly, but to be able to overcome such pain and such silliness that they're being treated to every day. Yeah. So in some sense, maybe I'm feminist, I guess. Yeah.
I'm not going to ask a question, but rather a remark. I'm very much impressed at how much you can say without saying so little. I mean, this is how I would describe your work. It says so little, but it says so much. So this is fantastic.
Any other questions? Oh, yeah.
Do you find yourself distracted in groups of people? As soon as you started talking about gestures, I started looking around. Are you constantly being swayed by other humans? I don't think to look at humans as making gestures, but it's exactly what they do. Do you find yourself distracted?
Sometimes I am, but not often. Only when I'm sitting down and I'm focusing on what touched me today, or something like that. The last show I had, I started figuring out the gesture thing was I had some art with respect to the dancers, where, you know, and I said at that time, it annoyed me to see a lot of professional dancers speaking the same language. And what made an impact on me is when amateurs started to dance, and their awkwardness was so real that I remember that. So when I remember that, I sort of take a picture of it, either with my camera or try to have a notebook to actually jot it down and try to remember that feeling that I saw. So no, I'm not distracted, but it does, you know, just like anything, when you see something sparkle, you say, oh, what's that sparkled? So there are some gestures that maybe even very normal, and yet because it's hidden most of the time now, that it captured me, and that's the start of where I would try to make a piece for that, and trying to read their mind. What were they thinking when they made that gesture? And also to do it as quickly as possible first, and to trying to distill the important parts. Because that's also what Sumi has, the art of Sumi is about, you know, very fast painting.
Like
And
that
minimal.
one with the human figure there, that's sort of very Sumi-like.
Yeah. After I saw a movie, Macbeth, it's kind of, again, I don't want to change the mood. Okay, but there's, you know, here's a man who's actually quite weak because he was pushed into this murder by his wife. You know, it's kind of horrible. And yet he went to the tent and stabbed his old friend just so that he could be king. You know, and coming out of the tent, he's still not sure that he should have done it. You know, wimpy guy. You know, as much as Shakespeare make him to be a strong guy, I think he's quite wimpy. Pathetic, I would say.
It's very graphic. You have some really graphic pieces, like the red and yellow behind you is a standout. What do you call that one?
Modern palette.
Okay.
It's okay. So any other questions?
Does your engineering influence you as an artist?
That's my engineering influence. Probably. It probably does. Maybe at the very least the struggle, like to control it, because beginning too analytical is kind of irritating sometimes. But I have to accept that's part of me, and so I have to welcome some of it. And some of the, you know, like the gravity, I know a little bit of what gravity does, and so it informs me that if I want to challenge it, then I would have to challenge the gravity. You know, that's why I wanted it to be a little, you know, like equilibrium or Tai Chi. they're really, there's a tension of them falling. I just put a little bit of glue just to keep them stable. But the gravity is something that's challenging in sculpture because, first of all, the material's often going to be already heavy. So how do you express lightness with such a heavy medium? You know, so it does. I mean, the logic is there, and so you're fighting the logic. So the logic won first, but now you want to kind of push it aside a little bit, challenge it.
Thank you.
So,
I'm curious if you have a studio in your house there where you're creating all these different things.
yeah, we do, but it's kind of messy.
But I mean,
a lot
some
of these pieces
Yeah,
actually
both.
was in front of the TV. I would have the TV on and still do it. Yeah, I put it on channel that's really nothing, just noise,
Mhm.
and then slowly carve it. And from time to time, they say something ridiculous. You go, what? And go back. A little bit of distraction, so that I don't get too deep into the work.
But you must need some pretty fancy equipment, you know, for some of these metal.
This was cast.
Cast.
This was cast in Minneapolis. So
okay.
the original is just resin, epoxy resin.
Ah.
Right. Then it got molded and then it got cast to bronze. No, I don't have a
Right.
foundry.
Tomorrow.
No, it's too. Yeah.
So you don't watch the news?
Oh, nowadays,
No, I mean while you're creating.
during those times, yeah. I mean, like I said, the scarred one. That's
Mm.
I can't I can't shake that picture off. I still remember that picture. It was horrible. Really, I find that even more horrible than the United Airlines, as horrible as the United Airlines situation showed on YouTube. That one was even more because it's about pulling somebody so that they can have a bikini. What the heck is that? You know? I didn't understand that. So, any questions on any pieces?
I have a question.
Oh, yeah.
I want the technique. How do you make this one?
I started with a wire. So it's essentially an evolution from Sumi. Sumi, you just use a few lines. And it's a challenge, kind of like almost calligraphy. How do you use a few lines to express what you wanted? So with a few lines, I now have a working basis. From the few lines, now I can convert it to wire. So I just had 2 pieces of wire. And then once I have the pieces of wire, now I just have to widen it up and give it some mass. And that's it. After that, then I use epoxy resin there, and then you just carve it to whatever level or shape you want, and maybe even sand it to its surface. Yeah. But that one, I really wanted it to be unstable, and the challenge was how do I make it stable, and the image of being stable.
Very beautiful.
Thank you. So, okay.
Nice.
This reminds me of my class a few minutes ago. Oh, Mary.
It's not a question. It's from the first time I observed and experienced, excuse me, your work. I thought this guy is not from here in a way, because the caliber of your work. Don't get puffed up about this. I know you're a humble guy, but really, it needs to be in the DIA. I mean, the caliber of what you create and produce is of such a high standing. I mean, we are, oh yeah, I knew you'd do that. But I'm right, I'm Mary Wright, right? So I got you. But it really does.
Thank you for the comment.
Thank you for your work.
Okay, I invite you to enjoy the work, and I'll be here to answer more questions.
Get out your checkbook.